What's going on, Mark? We are 21 days and having Christina Drive listed. And once we get to the 30-day mark, that's when we're going to be talking about, price cuts and, just our options. And I wanted to make sure I made this video because obviously, the foundation sucked. Harley's quote was a little bit higher than expected. So, money to be made on this deal is possible, which I'll get into. But right now at sale, once we do a price cut, it's going to start looking very slim. And I'll explain that here now. So you should be able to see my screen. And I'll just go straight into it, right? So right now it's listed for 349.9, right? Basically 350. So I think someone's going to ask for a price cut regardless. Offer lower than what we're asking. So that's why I said 340. My underwriting is 330, keep in mind. So our loan amount's 205. Once we sell it at 340, if that's the case, we got 135 left. I'm expecting this for realtor commissions, just rough based off other estimates. I think it's actually, I think it'll come out right around this, maybe a little bit less. So after realtor commissions, we're here. Closing costs, I have my closing costs high. It was 9.5% for my for the Gary Ave flip. However, we had a $9,500 seller credit. So when it sold on the market, it shows it sold at 319.5. So I put 8. I think it's going to be less, but you never really know. So I don't want to get too crazy here. So with that being said, right at what is that? Wow, is that 4.5? So we're at, let's see, what is this freaking? I'm not going to do all this. 12.5% for closing costs, which is high, right? But it's real estate, anything can happen. So we're sitting on a gross profit of 9,200. We have 92,000, excuse me, roughly 93,000. So we still have this for the foundation, right? That's what this is. So I'm gonna just take this off right now. So once we take off the foundation, here's our profit, right? This is, oh, it's not net yet, but after we get rid of all the debt that we currently have, this is what it is. And then this is the amount of money that I have spent over the 100 grand. So this came out of pocket for the rehab. So if this is us, getting rid of all of our losses here in current, and then this is the profit, right? So this is what this is why I wanted to chat, right? So I plan on just kind of getting you as close to 30 grand as possible, and that's where we're here. Granted, everything has to go right. 340 sales price, which I don't think is really unfair to ask. But you lose maybe about 2 grand, and I'm, that's it's not great, but it's a lot better than losing the whole 30. So I did want to talk about how we got here, right? So the total rehab was 100 grand. We ended at 124. That's what this extra is because that came out of pocket, and I mean, I looked at my underwriting. So obviously the biggest deal was the foundation, right? So my estimate was 40 grand. Talked to Shane, talked to a couple engineers, and I thought we would be good. Obviously, we were not. We ended up being 27 over. And then for the roof, I budgeted 15. I've talked to multiple people. Everyone said 15 grand was good, but once we took off the tarp, all the plywood on top, like every single piece of plywood on top of the roof, under the shingles was bad. So we had to replace the entire thing. What are the odds? Of course. And then Harley, this was the original quote, and then he came in at 35. So he was originally at 42 grand, and I harped on him, so he brought it down, but we ended up being 6 grand over. HVAC's good. So if you can see where shit happened, right? My materials, I budgeted. So the way this makes sense is, I budgeted roughly. Uh, what is this? 1 second. Yeah, so I was off on the materials. Let's see, roughly about 5 grand or 6 grand. So if we look at the items that were purchased to make me off that much, doors and windows. Where are windows? Yeah, windows at the bottom here. So the doors and the windows is something I miscalculated here, so that's definitely on me. But regardless, we ended up being over about 44 grand, which hurt, right? So the reason why I'm making this video is because I also want to talk about a refinance. So I made another sheet. So let's say our property is valued at 340, right? It's different than selling because at an appraisal, it's going to base everything off comps. And I think the comps, support this. My house is newly updated, new foundation. Um, and it's a great product. Quite frankly, I'm very happy the way it turned out. We got new sod. I mean, it's a great house. So most finance, we can rent this out. So let's say we rent it out first and then try to start the refi. We do 75% loan to value. So that's our new loan. So new loan minus existing loan, we're at about 50 grand that we can pull out for cash after 5%, which seems to be the average for a refinance closing cost, which has come directly from that. Cash in pocket would be 37 grand. So there's a couple caveats to this. Yes, we get 37 grand, and that would be more than this 28 grand. However, out of that 37 grand, we still have 20, roughly about 20 something, 20% equity in the deal. So this 37 grand would need to cover some of these expenses, which, obviously we have a lot, 63,000 of expenses. Since I've already paid for this, it's really just paying down credit cards. So this foundation one is going to be the biggest thing. And it could be half of it or not. So it's not like we really just have to pick our poison. Because, the other thing is the rents, right? What do you feel that we can get for rent? And right now, here is just a quick rough estimate, right? We don't really know anything. Mortgage, 1,600 with the new refi. Taxes, this is all monthly, right? And then your maintenance fee is 135. So our monthly cost would be this much. Since it's a new product, that's why this maintenance is low. But the way I see this is absolute worst case scenario, which is, like I said, I'm just talking out loud here. This is not something I'm suggesting or say that we should do, but just giving some options. Let's say we can rent this bad boy out for 2,500. And I think previously you told me this is zip code rents for about 1,800 based off of Gary Road, which was a 3-bed, 2-bath. But that wasn't a traditional 3-bed, 2-bath. So our monthly cost about 2,400. So depending on, let's say it's going to be 1,800. 1,800. So let's say our rent's 1,800. So if I do this monthly cost minus rent, that's $600 a month that we would be bleeding until we sell, because that would have to come out of our pockets. And like, this is all rough, so this is spitballing. But with that said, we would pay off loans, the foundation loan. We would still have 20% equity, and assuming that the market will pick up, let's say in a year after we've had a rent for a year in their lease and then sell, our risk would be the cleanup price for getting them out, assuming there's damages, touch up paint, things like that, and then try selling it again or trying to do a lease option. So the purpose of this is to figure out a way to not lose money, and the way to recoup all of our money would be really just to buy, hold, sell, or we can just wash our hands, cut our losses, and try to sell. and then get as much money back as possible. Let me know what you think. This isn't ideal, but we do have options.